Mississippi.
And the show is powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. It is super cool. Not only is it a sports book, it's a sports bar. Great place to watch the games. Put a little money down on SEC football or the NFL. Grab a Tito's vodka soda with a lemon and enjoy yourself. They serve food in the sportsbook sports bar, too. You're about 20 feet from a blackjack table also, so it's all good at the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. Bet $50 there. Play award-winning Dancing Rabbit Golf Club, which is 3 minutes down the road, for $30. We're live in the Bank Plus studio, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Our guests join us on the Miller Lite guest line. We welcome in NFL insider Steve Palazzolo. San Francisco Giants, AAA. San Francisco Giants, AAA team. And the L.A. Dodgers won, so we'll just go right past that and jump into some football. Steve, do you bet on games?
I've dabbled a little bit. It's not a huge part of my week, but a lot of my colleagues at PFF do, and that's why we have a really good product that helps. So they like to leverage our data as much as possible.
Cool. Now, do you help me out on your weekend? You're part of the best website in football, ProFootballFocus.com. What on Saturdays? What do you watch college football, or y'all just doing all NFL stuff? How does that work?
Well, so as a company, we're covering all of it. I'm focusing more on the NFL now, and then the draft, come draft time. But, as soon as there's a noon Eastern kickoff, in college, we have hundreds of guys across the world really watching, analyzing, and starting to collect data on those games and grading them. And then once the game's done, our review process starts, and we review it multiple times, and we're grading every player on every play in both college football and in the NFL, and that's where all of our great analysis comes from. I think it's great, at least. We've got our grades saying how well did you play on every single play, and you kind of add it up at the end, and it just gives us different insights as to where the production comes from, who gets proper credit for good and bad plays, or blame for bad plays, right? So it's just nonstop throughout the weekend, and it's a full team of guys to make it happen.
For our listeners, Pro Football Focus has a college site too, and so they're doing both, and that's what's so cool. And then Steve has also been able to add the NFL draft piece for us, because we have so many players from the SEC, of course, that head to the draft in April or May of every year. He joins us on the Miller Lite guest line. Blake, you have something?
I have a great question off of this that ties into our Ezekiel Elliott conversation, which we seem to have all the time.
Yes.
So Zeke, fourth pick, or sixth pick, Saquon Barkley, fourth pick. You guys, you just said y'all analyze your numbers differently. So who is a name that was picked late that you guys said, oh, this guy should be early? Our data, I think like Chris Carson, 7th round, right, to Seattle. Now he's playing better than Ezekiel Elliott prior to his foot injury. Yeah, Aaron Jones, a late-round pick. Kamara slipping to the 3rd round.
Right.
Who is somebody who fell too far that you said – I know A.J. DK last year you said were the top two receivers you had. They fell. Who besides that would fit that category that your numbers spoke to that NFL teams just seem to miss?
Yeah, I would go on the defensive line, where we've had some pretty good success projecting players. So you have Trey Flowers, who was drafted a few years ago by the Patriots in the 4th round, and then Grady Jarrett for the Falcons, who was drafted in the 5th round. We thought both of those guys were first-round caliber players. And obviously they've played like that at the NFL level. Trey Flowers getting that big contract with the Lions. He's making over $20 million a year. Grady Jarrett getting re-upped by the Falcons. Both guys disruptive against the run, excellent pass rushers, and guys that just really dominated in college. But for whatever reason, Trey Flowers didn't have the perfect measurables for an edge defender. And Grady Jarrett, people thought maybe was a little too undersized. But we said, look, production wins out, when you're projecting players to the next level. And those were probably two of our best successes, guys that were mid-round players that played like first-rounders.
Yeah, all right. And some Mississippi guys, Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com. Check it out today. 3 guys that really jump out to me that you loved, and that's A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, and Chris Jones, all in the 2nd round. You would not have had a problem with those guys going in the top 20 or 25 picks in the 1st round, right?
Absolutely. So Chris Jones, another great one, right? I mean, he was a guy that we had as a top 10 player in that draft. I think that's been, the truth. That's what he's played like. And it's just funny when you hear scouts say, well, he takes plays off or he plays with high pad level. I think the beauty of our system is we grade, pluses, minuses, and neutrals on every single play. And if a guy is playing with bad pad level or bad effort or whatever, he's not going to have a good grade. It's going to show up somewhere in the, hundreds of snaps that we have graded. And for Jones, it was a little over 1,000 snaps of just domination. Are there some bad plays in there? Sure. But he dominated from a pass rush standpoint. And, we're also graded and saying, look, did you whoop the guard really fast? And, that gets a really good grade, whether you get a sack or not. That was where Chris Jones, I think, really stood out at Mississippi State. And then the Ole Miss guys with DK and A.J. Brown, those were our top two receivers in that draft. And then, we value pass catchers quite highly at PFF because that's where the game's won. It's a passing league. And you need guys like DK and A.J. Brown who instill fear in the defense. That's exactly what they're doing. So, yeah, we absolutely had those guys as first-round picks because their skill sets are just, too good to pass up in today's NFL.
What was your reaction when DK caught Baker?
Oh man, that was crazy. It was hilarious. I mean, it was one of the best plays of all time. One of those historic plays you're going to look back at, just like Ben Watson doing the same thing to Champ Bailey. And everybody in the NFL is such an incredible athlete, right? And then you just have DK playing at a whole different level. It's just ridiculous. Just even knowing the angle he had to take, because he was running a route in the middle of the field. Just knowing the angle he had to take to get on track, and you saw the fear in Budda Baker's eyes when he looked back at his 230-pound monster is tracking him down. I mean, it was really outstanding. And, Chris Collinsworth's my boss. I thought he did a really good job of, highlighting just how important that play could have been for the Seahawks season, even though they ended up blowing the game in the end.
Agree. And what about A.J. Brown? I mean, this is a guy who is continuing to take the ball on, at times, some crossing routes, right? Intermediate. And then he just runs away from everybody. Steve?
Yeah, 95 yards after the catch out of his 150 on Sunday, including that big 70-plus yarder. I got to give a lot of credit to Ryan Tannehill for kind of turning his career around, even though he struggled on Sunday by our numbers. But A.J. Brown's been a big part of that. And Tannehill's stats have been inflated a little bit by plays like that, where you throw a 15, 20-yard dig route, which is a nice throw, but it should end up as a 15 or 20-yard gain. Instead, it becomes 70, So I think with him, AJ, because Ole Miss was so loaded, A.J. Brown's playing mostly from the slot. He had a lot of easier-looking plays in college, running up the seam, busted coverages against college defenses. But then, when DK got hurt, you saw AJ play outside a little bit, and he dominated there too. So, yeah, he's just bringing an all-around skill set, and the Titans are doing a really good job of tapping into it. He can catch the ball over the middle. He can create after the catch, and he can win at the catch point. That's tough to defend for NFL corners.
Knowing how good the two are today, and they're both different as far as what they can do stylistically and otherwise, who would you take today, A.J. Brown or with the first pick, A.J. Brown or DK Metcalf?
I'd probably still take A.J. Brown. I think, situationally, DK being with Russ, we've talked about that before. I mean, that's perfect. He plays to his skill set incredibly. What DK can do in the vertical pass game and having the best deep ball thrower in the NFL, and Russell Wilson's great. I think A.J. Brown's just a little bit more complete. You're going to trust him more on underneath routes. You can trust him in the slot a little bit more. So I think A.J. Brown's better all around, but DK, I think, probably instills fear in the defense a touch more because you need a guy that can match up, and most teams don't. And if you feed DK, you're probably going to get good results.
Okay. Let's switch gears to Drew Brees and the Saints this weekend. He is Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com, NFL insider on the Miller Lite guest line. The show is powered by the Golden Moon Casino Sportsbook. With Brees traveling to Chicago and 20-mile-per-hour plus winds and the way that he plays the game now, do you expect Sean Payton to look at this, maybe scheme it up a little different way, rely on the running game, dink and dunk, knowing that Chicago is not prolific on the offensive side of the football?
Yeah, I do expect, a somewhat conservative game plan. And the Saints have really been running that all season. It is fascinating to me. This is their first outdoor game. We're in week 8. They haven't seen the sun all season. The Saints are finally going outdoors. And, for all of the concerns about Drew Brees' arm strength, it gets masked a little bit. The dome matters. It is easier to play in the dome and trust when I throw the ball, I know where it's going to go. And it's just this feel that you have that's cleaner rather than being outside. And you mentioned some days it's 20-mile-an-hour winds, some days it's calm, some days there's rain, snow, whatever it might be. So I think it's a bit of a challenge. I think it's a really great challenge for Brees just to see where he's at because we haven't, seen him play outdoors. But the Saints have been relying on that underneath pass game the entire year. I expect more of that. What I did love from Brees on Sunday, he threw the deep out a couple times, far hash, deep out, showed the anticipation and accuracy. That's like the arm strength barometer for college QBs coming out. Brees doesn't need to show off his arm strength, but he shows the anticipation to get it there and read the defense early and put it where he needs to. So they'll take those opportunities as they come up, I think, schematically, those 15, 20, 25-yard passes. But for the most part, it's throw the ball underneath, let some guys, make defenders miss and put some points on the board.
Who's better at doing that week to week on offense, Sean Payton or Andy Reid? Or is Andy better because of where Mahomes is in his career and the personnel they have around him? But who's the better schemer game day? All right, both preparing week to week and on game day play caller.
Man, that's close. I mean, I like Peyton maybe a touch better, but I mean, Andy Reid just has a history of success. So Peyton's always had Drew Brees, not always, but he's had Drew Brees since 2006 for the most part. He did a nice job with Teddy Bridgewater last year. But I think from a full body of work, you look at Andy Reid, who is adjusted to every type of quarterback. He had Donovan McNabb, who wasn't really all that accurate with short stuff, but he had success with him. He had success with a conservative QB like Alex Smith. He's obviously having success with Patrick Mahomes. So I think Reid's kind of proven it with different style quarterbacks a little bit more. But Peyton does such a good job of playing to his guy's skill set as well. And I think there's right now there's more pressure on Peyton to be able to do that because Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy up there in Kansas City, they have 10 to 15 plays per game where it's like, hey Patrick, go play football, go make a play. It's not that Brees can't do that, but Brees needs to play in structure a little bit more. So I think there's a little bit more pressure on Peyton to be good every single week. And, the fact that, with Drew not able to throw the ball down the field, but they're still able to move the ball, I'll give Peyton the nod just a little bit this season.
Okay, what about younger guys like Nagy, McVay, Schottenheimer, OC with the Seahawks, and then San Fran with Shannon. And I know San Fran really hasn't maybe opened it up, so to speak, because maybe Garoppolo isn't exactly what they want or there's a trust. But anyway, younger guys, offensive minds, what direction do you go, Steve?
Kyle Shanahan, I think, is the best of that group. He's been calling plays forever, and he has a history. Even if he wasn't calling plays, offenses he's associated with have taken mid-level quarterbacks and produced at a top 10 level. From Matt Schaub to RG3 his rookie season, and then when they finally got an above-average quarterback like Matt Ryan, he becomes MVP in 2016. Even the first couple of years in San Francisco, he's got C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins out there. They're not winning games, but just the fact that those guys looked competent, I thought was really an impressive job by Shanahan. So I think he's fantastic. I think with Brian Schottenheimer, the best thing he's done is to put the ball in Russell Wilson's hands in Seattle. They used to have this philosophy, run, pass, and, it's 3rd and 8, Russ will bail us out. This year, they're dictating the action. They're saying, look, we have an elite quarterback. We're going to let him throw the ball 40 or 50 times a game and not just worry about the run game. That's a huge adjustment by anybody named Schottenheimer. They love the run game. So I have to give Brian Schottenheimer credit for making that adjustment. And then I think when you look at a guy like Sean McVay, the thing about the NFL is you can't just do a thing and it works for 5 to 10 years. There's so much adjusting going on. And I think McVay kind of took the league by storm. Then there were some adjustments late in 2018, a little bit into 2019, and he's back, making his own adjustment right now. They're doing a much better job with the Rams. Kevin O'Connell calling the plays that adjusting to defenses who have slowed down the Rams over the last year and a half or so. So I think McVay is doing a really good job. He's still young. He was an innovator to a point, and he's continuing to fire back at what the NFL's thrown at them. So I love it. There's a lot of good play callers, and it's the fun of the NFL. It's not just, hey, do this thing. And, the thing that's made Bill Belichick so good through the years is his ability to adjust to whatever the league's doing. So the best coaches will always – no, it's not a copycat league, guys. It's an innovators league. It's an adjusting league. You don't copy what other people are doing. You have to innovate. All those guys are doing a good job of it.
Steve Palazzolo, NFL Insider, ProFootballFocus.com on the Miller Lite guest line. Real quick, Blake, before you go. Steve Sarkisian. Steve, so he spent, I think, 2 seasons with the Falcons. He's back with Bama doing a great job. I know they have great personnel. We're just wondering if Sark ends up, if he can position himself for a head coaching job in the NFL or definitely a Power 5 job in college football. Do you have anything on Sark? Any thoughts on what he is as a play caller and offensive mind?
It's funny because I think, people soured on him, obviously, because of some of the off-the-field issues that he had at USC and all that stuff. And I think he's reshaped his image a little bit. I don't know exactly, from an off-field standpoint, but he did a nice job with the Falcons. He took over, Shanahan's offense and at least didn't keep it completely humming, but he had it moving pretty well, and they're struggling now a little bit more without him. But he's a guy, McVay has a style and Shanahan has a style. Sark doesn't really have a style. I think he's done a nice job of adjusting through the years and, play into what his personnel is, whether it's at Bama, whether it's with the Falcons, back at USC and at Washington and all that. So I could see him more as like a reclamation project as a Power 5 head coach, maybe an offensive coordinator once again in the NFL level. You have success there. You get to the NFL head coach. I don't see head coaching opportunities right away in the NFL level, but I could see, someone else taking a chance at the Power 5 level on Sark.
All right, fair enough. Blake, you've got a question for Steve Palazzolo.
Yeah, Steve, I want to kind of go back to what we talked about, but the inverse of drafting guys maybe too high, and what you talked about, the pass catcher position is highly valued. The running back position isn't. We've talked about running backs you can get late. We see what's happening in Dallas. Obviously, Dak Prescott has missed both on the field and in the locker room, but they paid Zeke. That's who they decided to pay, and he doesn't win you ball games. Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson, all 3 quote-unquote generational running backs who were paid a ton of money. All 3 were the lowest-rated running backs according to PFF in Week 7. Ezekiel Elliott has 1 carry over 15 yards this year. He fumbled on that carry. Daniel Jones has 3 carries over 20 yards. I mean, I kind of want to pull my hair out, but I don't have any. Tell me what's going on. Was Zeke too highly drafted, first off? And secondly, what's the plan with this, with Zeke, with Gurley, with those types of guys moving forward? Saquon Barkley.
I don't know if that was a question or a dissertation, but you nailed it. I mean, it was a lot of it's right. Look, there's no such thing as a generational running back right now. There's nobody. I mean, when you watch Alvin Kamara play, he's like and maybe McCaffrey a little bit. They're like the closest ones where it's like, all right, he's worth it. But still, ultimately, the problem is the difference between running back A and running back B, the difference in production is just marginal. It's just not enough to draft them highly or to pay them highly. And all that said, Kamara lasted to the 3rd round, right? I mean, so good backs are found later on. So you just can't get sucked into Zeke Elliott, to David Johnson, to Todd Gurley, as you said. You have to understand how much everything around them fuels their production. With Todd Gurley, he couldn't average more than 3.2 per carry until McVay got there and the offensive line got shored up. Like, that in and of itself should tell you he's dependent on 5 blockers, 6 blockers really, a play caller, and a passing attack. So that's just the reality of the running back position, is those guys do not dictate the action. And as much as I love Christian McCaffrey with the Panthers, their offense has been better since he left. And why is that? Because McCaffrey's not touching the ball 25 or 30 times per game. You take 10 of those touches and you throw them Robbie Anderson's way, DJ Moore's way. Those are more productive plays when you could throw to your receivers instead of handing it off or throwing to your backs. So it's just the reality of the NFL. Zeke, they're not game changers. Todd Gurley, none of those guys are game changers. Plus, they're more injury prone in general. That's where the McCaffrey thing comes in. So it's the nature of the NFL. It's a passing game, and it's a wide receiver, tight end, quarterback-driven game, not driven by running backs.
Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com, on the Out of Bounds show as we head into the weekend. Again, the Saints play in Chicago Could be some challenging weather for Breeze. Can't wait to see what Sean Payton does as far as scheming that up. Talk about Brady's production the last 4 weeks, Steve, as we wrap it up.
Yeah, I've tried to tell you guys back in week 1 and 2. I was like, "Oh, look at the stats. He's throwing the ball really well," and I think you're starting to see that show up on the stat sheet. You know, he got to play in a dome on Sunday with the Raiders, and that, you know, so he looked a little younger, right? He's firing the ball all over the place. So, you know, Brady's throwing the ball well, and he's got those pass catchers. The trust that he has in Chris Godwin, who's hurt this week, but Mike Evans, Scotty Miller, who he loves, he had a beautiful deep ball to him. So I think the Bucs are doing a great job of meshing those offenses. That was the big question coming in. Can they mesh the Bruce Arians downfield passing attack with what Brady likes to do, getting rid of the ball quick? And here's the stat that stands out to me. Bruce Arians' quarterbacks are always some of the highest pressured quarterbacks in the NFL. Brady's pressured less than any quarterback in the NFL right now. And that speaks more to quick release and decision-making than it does the offensive line. So I think they've really found their sweet spot with that offense and the ability to spread the ball around and take advantage of all those playmakers they have in Tampa Bay.
And we've got 1 minute. What's the number one game for you this weekend?
Oh, man, Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
Yes.
I just think, you've got those awesome AFC matchup. Is Pittsburgh for real? They're the only undefeated team. I don't think they're the best team in the NFL. They just happen to be undefeated. But, their defense, the Ravens defense is playing outstanding. And then offensively, Lamar isn't as dominant as last year. The run game isn't as dominant as last year. So it's just a great, strength against strength type of old school AFC North battle. And it's going to go a long way to determining, some of the top seeds in the AFC.
Bam. Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com. Follow him on Twitter at PFF_Steve on Twitter at PFF_Steve. Thanks, buddy. Have a great weekend. Appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
See you, man. Steve Palazzolo, ProFootballFocus.com. Basically, Blake lives for that segment.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing of the week every week.
And two, Blakey Blakesher loves ProFootballFocus.com, which it's hard not to like because the site's amazing and smart. It's smart. It's just
what's wild is their site has made me love the NFL draft so much more because it's easier to understand. We watch more football than probably like 75, 80, 90% of our listeners probably for the most part, and we still don't see half the guys that get drafted in the draft.
No.
You know what I mean? So a place like PFF allows you to get in there, the nuts and bolts, have fun, enjoy it. So I love it, man. Steve's great.
Saints Bears,
and like he said, Steelers Ravens. I think those are probably the two games to watch for us at least.
Sean's going to get it done. He's going to scheme it up, draw it up, play call it up, and they're going to get out with a hard-fought, low-scoring game in Chicago. Yeah,
I'm with you, baby.
Okay, nice. We got Falcons-Panthers tonight. I can't do a lot with that. Maybe they'll have cool uniforms. Live in the Bank Plus studio, the Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Live Oaks Golf Club. Live Oaks Golf Club, 601-982-1231. Highway 49 North. Oh, Roosevelt's is open. They're serving lunch, and it's delicious. Live Oaks Golf Club, Highway 49.